Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to take a look at a nice W3 or Wave 3 trade setup that unfolded yesterday on a 3-minute chart of the ES, just to show you how we use MTPredictor. But let's start with our risk disclaimer and just remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and trading purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. It doesn't matter what trading approach you take, there always will be losing trades. Right, I just want to remind you all, or for new people who haven't seen many of our MTPredictor videos, is that MTPredictor is not a black box. We have automatic trade setups on our charts, but we don't just take them all blindly. And the reason we don't do that is because we know and understand and accept that markets are random half the time. In other words, just over 50% of the time, the markets will not be in a clear pattern. So therefore, you shouldn't be considering any analysis or considering any trades. So obviously the question then arises, how do we decide when a market's in a clear pattern? Well, for that we go to a higher time frame and use our DP levels on our higher time frame. A higher time frame would be a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So as this is a 3-minute chart, it would mean going out to the 15-minute chart. If you say trading daily stocks, it would mean going out to the weekly. If you say trading hourly Forex, it would mean going out to, say, the 4-hourly chart. I just want to use our trading mode here in our standalone version, and I'm going to jump back to halfway through yesterday's trading. By the way, this is a 24-hour chart of the ES, but this is halfway through the American day yesterday. Can you see how the market's starting to go down here? It's going down. So what we can do is, if the market's going in the same direction as a previous trend, we can use the previous pivot. So this previous pivot load you see here, we right mouse click, we select decision point. Can you see how that gives us an area of support? But more importantly, how it's on the chart in advance. In other words, it's a leading indicator. It's preparing you in advance for a potential level. So we're not looking at any scanners here. You can see we have scanners in our software, but we're not being led by the scanner. We're being led by our projected, anticipated support and resistance zones. So let's see what happens as the market moves forward. I'll just turn trading mode off. This is what happened. The market went down. It came down, and then can you see it made the low of the day right at that level. So what does this mean on the time frame we're actually trading? Well, if we go back to the time frame we're trading, which was the 3-minute chart, this is what the chart looks like. Can you see how now the market came down to that higher time frame support? That's why we wouldn't be considering any of these buys earlier, because it hadn't got to the support level. But can you see how after this the trend there therefore becomes clearer, because the market reacted at our anticipated level. In other words, it was doing what we anticipated. When that happens, we deem the market picture is clear. So it made a reversal at our projected support zone. The large view trend we then deemed to be up. That's then confirmed by our MTP trend colour. Can you see here how it turned from red in a downtrend to grey, to in the process of making a reversal, to blue, to show that the market trend was therefore up. So that's why this was a good trade to consider. If I jump back to what it looked like at the time, that's what it would have looked like at the time. So you can see a really clean, clear picture with the market making a reversal off the higher time frame support. The market trend is up. We then had a lovely initial move off the low. In Elliott Wave terms, that would be deemed a wave 1. We then had an A, B, C, three swing correction into this low here. This then was found as our TS3 or W3 Wave 3 trade setup. We particularly like these trade setups because if I place the analysis on, you can see we're anticipating that this is a wave 2. It's the end of a wave 2, therefore we're looking to trade the wave 3. So that's why the target that we are projecting to use is the typical wave 3 target. In other words, that's why it's called a W3 trade setup, because it's looking to trade the wave 3. We like wave 3s because they're typically the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence. In other words, they have the largest profit potential in relation to the smallest initial risk. Remember, we use position sizing to keep our initial risk small and under control, in this case risking less than 2% on a sample $20,000 account. That then calculates how many contracts you can actually take for this particular trade. So when you're wrong, you would be losing minus 1R or 1 risk unit. But when you're right, and that's why we like these W3 trade setups, because the anticipated wave 3 is usually a strong move, the profit is potentially large, but not just large in dollars, large in risk reward units. Here the profit potential was 8.9, or can I call it 9? Approximately 9 times greater than the initial risk. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for trades where the profits are large in relation to the losses that always will come through, and losses are inevitable no matter what trading approach you take, but those losses are kept small. If I turn trading mode off, you can see that's exactly what happened, with the market then rallying up quite nicely to reach the typical Wave 3 WPT target just before the US close, which was around here. The market did carry on a bit higher later on in overnight trading, but for you guys who are in the US, this was just as the US day session was closing. The market didn't move up in one straight line. Markets never do. You can see it went up, came down a bit, went up, came down a bit, went up, but then it did actually reach that level. We wouldn't be considering these sell setups here, which you can see these history triangles, because the large trend would have been up off this 15-minute support zone. So hopefully this has been a good example of MTPredictor in action, where we first look to the higher time frame chart. We then project, remember we project in advance our DP support levels or resistance levels, so our decision point support and resistance levels. That would have then found the low there very nicely. We then come down to our shorter time frame chart. We're then looking for trade setups that fall in that larger degree trend direction. And we're only looking for trade setups when the picture's clear. And that's the most important point. It's important to wait and have the patience to not trade willy-nilly, but only trade when the picture's clear. And as you can see here, it came down, caught the low of the day very nicely at our higher time frame support. Market trend was then deemed up, confirmed by MTP trend color. We then had a lovely clear ABC pattern into the a potential wave 2 there for our wave 3 trade setup, that then carried on rallying just before the close of the regular session for a lovely plus 8.9 hour profit. So a great example of MTPredictor in action, and particular our W3 or wave 3 trade setup.